from 21 to 25, I had made enough money that I retired at 25. And retiring in the sense that I had enough money now that it paid for my house, my vehicle, my lifestyle, all of that kind of stuff. I didn't stop doing everything.
And welcome back to Podcast on Wheels. I'm your host, Brian Smith, and today we've got a special treat for you guys. We've got Mr. Jeremy Hall, professional trader, joining us virtually. Jeremy, welcome to the studio.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate this.
Awesome. So, guys, you guys know that we try to stay up to date, learning new things and understanding things that we didn't understand. So, Jeremy is a guy who got introduced to us through some of our Vegas connections. And Jeremy's a professional trader, guys. He understands this, been doing it for a while, but that's enough for me. Jeremy, tell us a little bit about how you got started and becoming a trader.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, so it all started when, growing up, I grew up extremely poor. My family, didn't have a whole lot of money. My mom stayed at home, and my dad was a long haul truck driver. And they actually separated when I was 8 years old. So there was even more of kind of like a clamp on finances when that happens. You get separate families and so on and so forth. But I remember a time after my mom and dad had split up that we were actually on a winter's night all cuddled together on our second floor landing on a mattress. And, it's me, my two brothers, my sister, and my mom huddled together sleeping on this mattress because, the heat and hydro have been shut off. And it was like, that was like how poor we really were. I'm sure there was circumstances outside of that as well. Maybe some poor decisions from my mom, maybe some, whatever. Anyway, that's really what led me into trying to find something that would take me from poverty to somehow exiting that anyway. So I was always fascinated with money growing up. I would do any odd job I could. I'd be, shovel somebody's laneway. I would cut their grass. I would do whatever I can. And I remember putting all my earnings into this little medicine jar that I had that was like a pill bottle. And I'd only make, $2-3 when I was really young. And I'd add it up. And as soon as it filled up, I'd take it to the bank and I'd go give it to the guy at the bank and he'd put it in and he'd give me a slip back, tell me how much money I had. And I remember having this like overwhelming like respect for the guys at the bank because, they're dressed really nice, right? They're dressed in normally a shirt, tie, sometimes even a jacket. So I always thought, man, these guys must have all kinds of money. They're always dressed like they're going to a wedding or something else. And so I remember always just having the respect for them. And I had a conversation with a financial planner when I was like 18 years old. And we had the chat about self-directed investing. And that is exactly the way it sounds. It's now you're taking control of your investments, putting them where you want to go. And this is what kind of started my journey on the trading path because I took everything I had. I saved up about $5,000 on all my odd jobs and everything, put it in the market and immediately lost it almost immediately. Like within a few weeks, I think I had lost all $5,000. And I said, holy cow, what have I done? I didn't have the money to do this in the first place, but I went back to work, made some more money and put it back into the market and continued to try. Each time I tried, the money would last a little bit longer, but the same result kept happening. And I would just stick to it, kept doing it, kept doing it, kept doing it. And this went on for 3 years where I had, spent tens of thousands, countless thousands on, putting it into the market. And 3 years time, actually, at the age of 21, I kind of turned a corner through the series of trial and error, right? The failures have added up to make this success. And then all of a sudden I realized, holy crap, I'm profitable. I'm starting to take money out of the market. Not a lot, but I'm now break even to making money. In just 4 more years from 21 to 25, I had made enough money that I retired at 25. And retiring in the sense that I had enough money now that it paid for my house, my vehicle, my lifestyle, all of that kind of stuff. I didn't stop doing everything. I had a landscaping company as well, very small, came from a town of 400 people. So really small business, but the trading is really what got me out of that poverty. And it took me from 18 years old to 25 to learn it, master it, and then become financially free because of it. So, that's what trading has done for me financially, has taken me to that next level where most people wait till they're 65 to retire or longer. They just work until they're, they can't anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then fast forward another 7 years after that, I was 32 years old. It was actually last year in January. I unfortunately lost my dad to a short battle of cancer. It was 90 days from the time he was diagnosed to the time he passed away. And I watched my siblings kind of struggle with taking time off work. They were getting in trouble for taking so much time off work, and they didn't have the money to take the time off work. And I'm sitting in the situation where nobody was calling me. Nobody was telling me I couldn't be with my dad. I certainly had enough money to make sure that I lasted far more than 90 days, right? So the time freedom really is what I'm most proud about. And really, when I first got involved, right? When I was 18, I was just looking to exit poverty. And now I've got this financial abundance and time abundance. And really, yeah, that's how I got started in it anyway. That was a long story short, but there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing that, I've heard you before. I've gotten to know you a little bit, and the thing that I appreciated about you, and the reason I wanted to bring you specifically, because I've met other people that trade. Other people come in and they say, "Oh, if you start trading now, you can do this." Well, you've told that story that I've heard right there. This is
Hmm.
not a, hey, you're going to walk in and be a professional athlete. You're not. You're not going to walk in and be a professional trader. You're not going to walk in and be a surgeon. There takes time. It's just, and for a guy like me at 45 now, it's hard to find the time that I would spend 7 years, and do what you were able to do. So that's kind of, this conversation and how we got to meet, because I'm looking for a way to learn from your bloody noses is kind of how I refer to them, like, hey, how can we build this? So, in that Zoom call that I met you, kind of share that where you're at now, how you're helping people there.
Absolutely. So, where I left off in that story was that I had lost my dad, right? And it had given me some time freedom, but it made me really, really depressed too. Losing my dad, he had me late in life. I think I told you right before we got on here, he had me at 44 years old. So he was still a little bit older, but still kind of a shock. He was 77 years old when he passed away. It put me into the worst depression of my life. I had never really experienced any kind of like anxiety or depression or anything like that until I lost my dad. And then it was like anxiety attacks, like physical symptoms, heart palpitations, all kinds of stuff that I was dealing with. So, not only on the mental side, but on the physical side, I was just beat down, man. And it went on for like 6 months after he had passed, and I was fighting. I was fighting to be there for my family. I was fighting to be there for myself. Like waking up in the morning was a struggle. And just, I remember having the thought, like, if I can just make it through till bedtime again, that was where I was like, man, I just got to get there and, yeah, get the day done. But something really, really great happened when I was in those depths of, like, those valleys were just crazy. But I started asking myself a lot of really cool questions, like, what did I want to do with the rest of my life, right? Because there really is something about becoming financially free at 25 years old. When most people, take that to that 65, you then stop thinking about surviving. You stop thinking about where the rent's coming from or where the mortgage is coming from, where the food's coming from. But now I started thinking, like, okay, so what do I want to do with the rest of my life now that I'm next on the chopping block after losing my dad? And I know it's a morbid way to think.
Right.
It really yeah, it gets you thinking, like, okay, what do you want to be remembered by? And I had my son, he's 2.5 years old. So I said, how do I want him to remember me? What do I leave behind for him, as far as like more than money, right? And I decided, after talks with my wife, God, friends, everybody, I was always the guy at a party who would, instead of talking about girls and sports and whatever, I'd talk to them about, where do you want to put your money, guys? Because that's the next thing. I would be constantly thinking about that kind of stuff. So naturally, I had the conversation with my wife and God and everybody else, and I said, why don't I teach this stuff? Why don't I bring it to everybody else? Help people get to where I am in a shorter period of time. And I think earlier on I said I was from a town of 400 people. So, when I decided to start teaching you, okay, well, let's talk to the neighbors, let's talk to my friends, let's talk to the people closest to me. And that amounts to about, 40 people, right? If it's going to make a lasting impact and get to more and more people, I had to use the internet. So I started looking on the internet for tools and platforms and all kinds of stuff that would kind of help me launch my teaching business. So, like I said, I was teaching probably about 30, 40 people. And I happened across a platform after vetting a bunch of them that automates trading in some senses. And it's an educational based platform that brings everything together for that beginner trader. And there's three things that a beginner trader struggles with massively, and that is they don't have time, they don't have knowledge, and they don't have the money normally. Or in the case of like maybe somebody like yourself who's just starting out, maybe you've got the money thing figured out, right? But do you want to put money in a spot that you have no idea what you're doing? And the answer is should be no, but you got to take the risk to make it happen. But the platform I found solves all three of those problems. We have an automated trading software that is called Tap to Trade, and it's as simple as clicking a notification on your smartphone. You know, all you have to understand is how to do that. That's it. And you can leverage pro traders like myself. It's not AI, it's ran by a pro trader like me. You'll get a notification on your phone, you click approve, you set your risk, and bam, you're in the trade. And I am running it, or another pro trader behind the scenes is running it from start to finish. So immediately, what 18-year-old Jeremy was thinking when I was looking at this as a 33-year-old, I go, man, I would have loved to have something just like this to take me from not profitable to profitable almost right away. And then something else I've experienced is that, now there's this big educational platform in behind it that's got this support. It's got community. We've got 30 plus educators, and it's all at an extremely affordable price. So I said, this is where I want to plant my flag. This is where I want to help people get to that next step easier without risking any of their own money and for a cheap price, right? And normally, like, I mean, you've probably experienced it. I've experienced it in my life. Anytime you try to cheap out on anything, you normally don't get quality, right? So
I had that
it's
conversation today. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and that's really not the case with this. The way we solve the money problem is we've partnered with a prop firm called TradeX Mastery. What they do is they allow you to leverage other people's money. They're putting up the money for you to learn how to trade with. There's a couple phases and challenges you have to pass, but ultimately the way it works is that once you pass these challenges, you then receive money to trade with and leverage that's not your own. So we're a subscription based platform, the learning tools, but you're not risking any of your own money, which is like the massive upside to this thing. You can turn it into real money and start pulling out profits to infinity and not responsible for any of the losses. So that's really why it's a game changer for me, and that's what's kind of started me on this teaching path. And it's only getting better and better and better as I go. I'm refining my craft, always looking to find different things that'll help my students. And this platform's been a massive, massive help. All of the students and everyone I'm trying to bring it to.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I can attest to that because I would say at the point we're recording this, I'd say we're about 2 months in to the trading as far as just starting, signing up, going through the, watching and getting onboarded, etc. And my wife and I do this together. It's kind of a fun thing that we do instead of playing Candy Crush on our phone or something stupid, we're trying to make money. So, she comes to me this morning. She goes, hey, the gold did this and we're at this and I'm taking this person's tip and this person's tip and I'm kind of combining them, but I'm setting a loss here and we're doing this. And I hear all the information. And then at the end of the conversation in the prop account, we're up $600 this morning. Okay. And I'm like, okay. All right. So you playing on your phone last night while I was doing this. That's how, so I've never traded before. I've talked about it just like everybody else. Hey, I want to learn. I'm trying to find this. Where can I learn how to do it? What they're asking is, where can I find it where I can practice with other people's money, be trained by people who are actually doing it and not taking bot trades and actually getting trades from people. So you found that and you're teaching it, right? And so what are some of the stories that you've seen the success time frames, like realistic for people?
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy because it varies, because I'm sure we'll segue into it in this conversation. It comes a lot down to like your emotional strength, discipline, and all that kind of stuff. all the real success factors of life in general, that applies to trading, right? But, I've experienced a lot of really cool situations where you take, a mom who has never seen a stock chart in her life,
Mm-hmm.
is profitable a month in, taking money out, supporting her children
Yes.
by learning this skill a month in, right? Like passing her challenges. And this is going through the ups and downs and the mistakes because, like I said, that automated trading, if you're just tapping that button, you're leveraging a pro trader, you're profitable right off the hop, right? But yeah, so another instance that really comes to mind is a lady in our group. She had been to other, gurus or whichever way you want to take it, because when you go online, it's overwhelming, right? It's like going to the supplement store. They want you to buy fish oil, all this protein, creatine, green juice, this, that, and the other. And I mean, same goes for the trading industry. They'll try to sell you on everything that you possibly can. Tell you can give them $10,000, they'll turn it into $1 million overnight, and it's just normally it's not true. But this lady in specific, she was with a guru before this, or a mentor. She gave him, I think, don't quote me on it, but I think it was 6K, and she learned absolutely nothing and had no results. Then she gave somebody else 7K and learned nothing and had virtually no results. She joined me at the end of January, starting in February. In February, she made 22 grand. 22 grand after joining my lives, joining my platform, or not my platform, but our platform, and learning from our guys, right? And then in March, she goes and tops that, makes 23 grand. So she's made $45,000 2 months being a part of this platform, and she's on her way to having another really, really good month here in April. It's like, if I can take somebody, regardless of their knowledge base, right? Because I just talked about somebody who is starting out with no experience whatsoever,
Right.
and becoming profitable after a month. And remember, I told you it took me 3 years.
Yes.
If I can take somebody in 1 month and make them profitable, that's crazy. If I can take somebody who has a little bit of experience but hasn't kind of turned that corner and the light switch hasn't come on, from going from break even trading to 45K in 2 months, that's that's kind of like the some of the highlights. But I mean, there's more out there in this platform. There's several thousand people. I think there's over 10,000 people now overall in the platform, and we just have an avalanche of results that come in on the daily of people who have never traded before, taking money out of the market because they're leveraging other people's knowledge, other people's money, and they're having fun doing it. I love what you said with your wife there about how you guys are playing on your phones.
Yeah.
You're gamifying the whole approach, and I think that that's really what helps, especially our generation now, where we've got like goldfish memories, and the attention span is gone, and like I've got to talk to you in 6 seconds or you're out of here, right? So having something that gamifies making money is another very, very cool thing about it. But yeah, those are just a couple stories, but man, I could go on probably all day and talk to you about
Yeah.
different successes and
Well,
all that.
here's
But
I
yeah,
do
go
want to
ahead.
give you a little backstory here because sometimes in the show we're kind of midway here, so I want to kind of throw you a little bit of a curveball, kind of throw something out here to you. But it has to do with my personal backstory. I make a trip out to Vegas to see some friends, and I see Greg, mutual friend of ours, and he picks me up at the airport. We go by John's house. We say hello to John. I meet John hanging out with Greg. We go back to Greg's. Nothing's really said. I'm just making a meeting and seeing John's house and where they record, and you've been there, right? So walking around, and we go back, and we're on the way to dinner now. And Greg looks over at his phone and goes, "Oh, cool. Got to cover dinner." And what is that? So Greg's like, "I got dinner tonight." Cool, great, thanks, man. So we go out to dinner, and then I'm like, "Hey, what does John do? That was a pretty nice place. What?" That's what got me intrigued, and that's what I appreciate about the guys that I've learned from. A lot of times in the past, I meet people and they want to tell me about this product. They want to tell me about this stuff. It's led by good people. It's led with real examples. And John telling his story of plant work and different things that he did back in the day. And you're from a town of 400 people with a landscape company, and you just found a way to get out of it. This is not somebody who grew up with parents that are millionaires that gave you a $500,000 to figure it out, right? I mean, that's why I resonated with this group. Tell us a little bit about that. How many people, like, or trips to Vegas or things we could do if somebody's interested? Like, how would they learn more, or calls, etc.?
Yeah, like how do they get involved? Like how
Yeah,
do they plug in to try to find out a little bit more
yeah,
information?
yeah. I don't know
Yeah,
many. Yeah, I
like
don't know many people that are going to fly out to Vegas and meet Greg and John and get the trip that I did. But that's how I got in. It was not a sales pitch. There was nothing there, and I wouldn't even known if I hadn't asked. So yeah,
and yeah, man, that's the best thing about having something of value too, is that it doesn't feel like a sales pitch. I've honestly said this over and over again. I'm only looking for people who are looking for me, because I'm not here to jam anything down anybody's throats. You don't have to line up to do this. I think hearing these stories from people of how successful they can be, like Greg covering dinner with a trade, or myself being retired at 25, or John being in the home based business side of it, making $30 million in 36 years. Like, there is over and over, it's like adding value to somebody's life doesn't have to be a sales pitch. Unfortunately, in every part of the world, somebody is trying to sell you something, right? And we're all ready to buy something. We just don't want to be sold. That's the bottom line. So if I have a sales pitch with you, you're more than likely ready to say no. But if you get exposed to it the way you were, where it's like, yeah, man, nobody talked to me about giving me any money, or giving them any money, or doing anything like that, it feels way more organic, right? But the way that most people are going to get involved is by seeing something online. They're going to see an ad, or a person like myself talking about trading. I'll say, hey, you want some more information? Get at me in the DMs, come see me, and then I'll probably hook you up with a Zoom call, one that you've been on. You've been on one of those now that you're already introduced to it, but you're going to go through the same thing. You're going to talk to people who are already doing it, people who are getting value out of it, have a complete overview of the platform, letting you know exactly what's in it. And this is all completely free, right? It's like the free quote kind of style. It's like, come on in, have a look, open up the hood, let me know what's underneath it, and make a decision based on that. Because it's totally not buy now or forever miss
right,
out, right? Like
right.
I'm not like that. And I think that's what everybody keeps telling me, is that I don't sound like a salesman, and maybe that's why I'm having good luck getting students. And then obviously the retention's the biggest thing,
Yeah,
because like I told you, we're a subscription based platform. That, and there's no risk involved other than the first month subscription. No contract, none of that. So
right,
you get involved and you come aboard and you say, well, this Jeremy is full of crap, and he really doesn't have any value here. We've risked the first month subscription, and then you walk away from it, basically risk free. Where when I first started in the market, it was 5 grand and lost it in the first week. It's like, oh my gosh, what have I done?
right, right.
Yeah, so I guess long story short, the way you get involved is like you just talk to people who are advertising it. I'm sure we'll put something in this podcast to make sure, or at the bottom of the description, to make sure you can get in touch with us. But it's just having a discovery call, seeing if it's the right fit for you, and then we go from there.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that I'm glad you brought up. When I first actually came back from Vegas and then got on a Zoom call with John, and we just talked for a little bit, and then I joined the group, that night, and that's what was cool about it. When I have people ask, I'm like, okay, are you free on Tuesday around? It's 8 o'clock Central Time for us, and it's like Tuesday at 8 o'clock. You can jump on, you can see what it's about, you can hear a couple stories. And then if you like it, you're invited to Vegas on Thursday night, usually for an in-person meeting. It's like, hey, how far you want to go, how quick you want to go, or did you log off after 20 minutes? Because as you heard, Jeremy's retired, guys. He's not selling you. He's helping you. He's educating you. He's sharing because, you know, maybe it was the story with your dad passing and you go and growing and you seeking that and going through that obstacle that has become an opportunity, I think. And I want to go into, you and I've talked personally a little bit about, but the mindset and some of the other skill sets and things that you bring. So we've talked about the trading. If people want to join the platform and do that, but let's tell them a little bit more about you and what you're bringing to the table now, because you're 34. Is that right? Am I saying
Yeah, 34.
34? And you've basically been set for at least 9 years. Family's in a good spot. You're taking care of everything, and now you're just giving back and and doing that. But tell us about that mindset, the coaching, etc.
Yeah, yeah, I love that because I talked about it a little bit previously in this podcast, but everything to do with just about every success you have in life starts with your mindset, starts with your discipline and all of those emotional tools that you really have to go through. And it's no different in trading. It's actually more, I think it's more or magnified when you're trying to trade, because when you're dealing with people's money and your own money especially, and you see that money start going up and down, it can get you emotional, right? It can get you emotional on the high side and the low side. We're going to have peaks and valleys all the way through this battle. And, it is a journey. And there's a lot of people. We talked about timelines to success. When can I expect to be in your shoes, Jeremy? It's like, it's almost impossible to talk about that or pinpoint that, because everybody's emotional strength is different. I don't know where you come from, whether you've been, completely 9 to 5 your entire life, whether you can think of outside the box and risk a little bit. But I'll tell you this much: the mindset when I lost my dad and got into that depression, I told you how much of a struggle it was to just exist, to get out of bed, to talk to my son, talk to my wife, things that normally would fill my cup and run it over, right? It wasn't the case when my mindset was wrong, right? I was experiencing grief. I was playing victim in that moment. And it's fair. It's fair to do that, right? We all have losses, we all experience problems in our lives, but the bottom line is that until I flipped the switch on the mindset and started pulling myself back out of it, I was going to stay in that hole, right? I was going to stay in that valley and not get out. What I bring to the table, I think that God's given me a few gifts, and that's the emotional strength to persevere through those first 3 years of losses. Like, he was definitely holding me through that whole thing and just kept shoving me forward, because there's no way, the regular person normally does not wait 3 years to see some kind of success and keep going at it.
Right.
So that's what I try to help people understand on their way through this journey, because that's part of that is what we're trying to bypass, right? We're trying to bypass the hardest stuff, but I need to teach it to you along the way while we're having good experiences as well. I have to tell you that your emotions are going to hit you, right? You could go through these challenges and pass both phases and turn it into funded money, and then you go and blow the funded account and you go, well, that's it. I'm done. I've blown my funded account. I put in all this work and, it just slapped me back down. And it's like, that's where we learn the most, is when we're getting beat up. Because something I often talk about with my students is resiliency, right? We all want to be resilient people. Like, we talk about it all the time. I want to be resilient, brave, strong, all this stuff. But what does it feel like when you need to be resilient? What state of mind are you normally in when you have to be resilient? You're getting beat up, right? The world is on top of you. What does it feel like when you need to be brave? Things are scary, right? You're having these trials and tribulations. And the only way you're going to experience and come out the other side being a resilient person is if you experience the storm first. And that's really my lessons to everybody, is that it feels like, especially in this case, when we're going from not knowing something to knowing something up here, we all want it in this nice straight line, right? But in reality, it's like a stock chart, and it does this. And the peaks and valleys are going up and down. And when you're in those valleys, it's very easy to not be a resilient person, to give up. Much easier to say, I'm done. Let's go back to doing what's safe. Let's go get that $1,000 a week paycheck, take care of the kids, and just over broke, all of that stuff. But if you really want to change your life, and you really want to have a life of abundance, both in time and money and relationships and everything, it takes sacrifice. It takes getting beat up over and over again. And I've been there. And that's kind of what I bring to the table, is like shining through that wisdom and, letting people know that. And I know it's tough sometimes when I'm having a conversation with somebody who's older than me and I'm talking about this stuff and they're like, well, what have you been through? you're 34 years old, not 74 years old. Like I've got students who are 75 years old right now. And I'm talking to them about emotional discipline. And they're like, well, I've seen far more. And it's like, yeah, granted, I'm not naive to the fact that you've probably seen a lot more loss. You've seen a lot more of
Yeah.
this, but how you've reacted to that has been a little different, right? So,
Well, the one thing I would say, but you're a lot nicer than me, I'd say, well, why are you here? If I mean, but I look at those kind of things, man, because I got to play sports at a higher level, and you meet people and you understand different things. And I've known guys that were 25, 26 years old that played golf or baseball or different sports that went through the same thing that you went through with the trading. Yeah, they thought it was going to be easy when they first started, or they got to a certain level of really trying and investing their time, money, or they got, even drafted. But I think that that's the thing that I wanted to make sure people got from this show today is that this is not, I've got a good friend of mine, and his name's Charlie Wilson, if you're listening. Because if I ever have, hey, I need somebody to poke every hole in this plan before I buy something, commit to something, do that, which I rarely do. But Charlie, if you're listening, brother, you're that guy for me. Because if I send it to Charlie, he's going to find everything, right? And he did. And this platform that we're discussing, he went through everything and he comes back and he goes, so really, you're just paying for the education. You're not promised anything. I'm like, no. And I think if you do the monthly subscription, if I'm correct, it's about 150 a month, or you can buy him for something else. And he goes, so $150 a month, I've got access to all these videos, all these educators, all this information to learn. I said, yeah. And if you don't like it, you don't do it the next month, right?
that's right.
And so to put, you know, it out there, and then I told him a little bit about you. He looks at your Instagram. He goes, this is real. Like, this is legit, and they've got everybody there. How fortunate am I that I made that trip to Vegas to meet Greg, to go to John's, and the truth is we were moving a safe at John's house, so we wanted somebody else to make sure it didn't get into that closet too far. So we were over there to move a safe. And I mean, what are the chances, I guess because I'm big enough to stop the safe from moving, I got to hear about this platform in a way. So brother, I'm excited. If somebody wants to go and learn with you, coach with you, if you want to give your Instagram handle, is there some way, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, yeah, and my Instagram handle is just jhall trades, JHALL trades. I've got a very small following right now because, like I said, this really didn't come about to start teaching until after my dad passed away last year.
Right.
But I've been in front of the screens for 16 years.
Yeah.
And it is interesting what you say about like the opportunities and how you got exposed to it. And it's like what I would like to come out of something, a podcast like this, is that maybe it lands in one of your audience members' boxes or whatever, and they see it and they go, that may be something to check out, right?
Right.
Because that's how we get exposed to everything. And we talk about the power of influence all the time with John, and it's like that it's just about being in the right place at the right time in front of the right people. So yeah,
Yeah.
very cool that it happened that
Yeah.
way for you though.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to add a little bit to that because, you and I've talked about our family and how much they mean to us. But Courtney's probably going to take credit because that particular trip was scheduled for her birthday / Valentine's weekend. So I'm going to go ahead and give the props to her for
There you
having her
go.
birthday the weekend. John needed help moving the safe. So, but Jeremy, what else? What's given you some information, a quote, a book? Is there something that you could share that helps you out through your day and just kind of give us something there?
Yeah, it's there's so many things that really come to mind, but something that just keeps me going is just understanding that no matter what, you've got an opportunity if you've woken up that morning, right? You've got something to give to somebody. And I had this one quote I really enjoyed this one quote, and it says, anyone can change everything. And it's very, very true. Whether it's me, because I've got a little bit of imposter syndrome. I'm not going to lie. when I'm from a town of 400 people and I just decide to start teaching. But yes, God's given me a talent to trade, and He's given me the ability to articulate it very clearly, get people to understand quickly. But I still have that imposter syndrome. I'm like, man, who wants to hear from me? What can I do to help people? But when all these things start piling up, all these success stories and everything start piling up, you realize that anyone can change everything for certain people, right? It's we're looking for people looking for us, and I'm happy to facilitate any kind of change I can, because that's really what I've been praying to God about, is how do I help more people. And I'm not naive to the fact that the more money that we make, the more people we can help. Getting out there, networking, finding other money making opportunities that allow me to forward that along to other people. That's what it's all about, making those connections. I'm really, really excited about that.
Well, a word that I would like to say is you're a good steward. That's what that's the vibe I get from you, bro. And that's the reason I
Thank you.
resonate with you. It's like, hey, he has it, he can, but he's rocking his dad hat and his hoodie and his gamer chair and he's chilling. He could probably wear something else if he wanted to, but that's not what's important to Mr. Hall. And that's evident in your attitude, your demeanor. And yeah, bro, I'm 45, you're 34. I've learned so much from you this past 45 minutes. Yeah. So if you ever worry about talking to old people, just look at them and say, well, why aren't you listening if you got it figured out? So
That's true.
just tell them I said it. Blame it on the old ball guy. So you heard it from
Yeah,
the old ball guy. All right.
fair enough.
But no, Jeremy, thank you so much for the show, because I wanted to have something where people could get to understand what's this thing Brian's talking about that we can use on our phone and trades, and it's not costing. I don't know how to articulate it as well as you do. So thank you for doing that part. Thank you for talking to us about your classes, your training, your mindset, and your personal story, man. Thanks for opening up about that. So really appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, likewise, man, I appreciate the stage you provided to do it on, because like I said, just getting it out to more people, we're going to change a lot of people's lives, giving them that. And touching on what you said about the dad hat and the get up and the chair. Yeah, I can throw. I've been called out a lot by that. Somebody actually in Vegas when I was there said, "We've got to up your style if you're going to come to Vegas. You kind of look like the Costco dad." And I was like, "That's a good brand,
Yeah,
actually.
it's
I
not
think that's
bad.
a good brand. We'll
It's
do
not bad.
that." Because funny story, I wear this hat for obviously a couple reasons.
Yeah.
Becoming a father was the best thing that's ever happened to me. It's the biggest privilege. It's why I'm so proud. It's the legacy I want to leave behind, but it's ultimately also, to pay homage to my dad. And that's that person has given, dad's given me the tools and the skills and all the knowledge and wisdom to be where I am at today. So I get asked all the time, why do you wear the dad hat so much? And those are the reasons. It's like, definitely,
Because it means something. It's real.
it
Yeah.
means something. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's real. Like
Yeah.
that's, you can
Yeah.
wear Louis Vuitton and
Yeah.
Gucci and whatever, and we can wear all the watches and buy all the cars and do all the things. But to be honest, I'd rather be in shorts and a t-shirt and flip flops and my ball cap and making millions of dollars behind the screens rather than dressing up in a suit like those idolizations that I did for the bankers. You couldn't pay me enough money to be a banker anymore.
Yeah.
So
Dressed up like they're going to a wedding doesn't look so much fun now, does it?
no, no, definitely not.
I
Yeah.
hear you. No, and the truth be known is those guys that were hanging out in Vegas, as soon as the cameras go off, they're dressed like you anyway. So it's like they're just dressing up for the show. So you're real on off camera. That's what I love about you. That's why I wanted to have you on the show. Seriously, brother. So thanks again for being on the show. And thank you guys for watching Podcast on Wheels. If you gained something from this show, please share it. If you want to reach out to Jeremy, you can go through us. You can get to him. We would love to have you on the platform. And thanks again for watching Podcast on Wheels.